I don't think it's any secret that I'm a fan of most of the things that Buffalo Trace makes. So here's what I would pay for every single Buffalo Trace item. Stay tuned after the break and we're going to talk about it. So I think Buffalo Trace has a very likable profile, and I think there's really just one drawback to it, and that is that everything seems to be super rare. It could just be because they're popular. They could be making artificial scarcity. I don't know. Buffalo Trace stuff is often really hard to get, and I get that. So this conversation is brought by the fact that it is super rare, and either you don't find it in stores or you find it for a crazy price. Here's kind of how I'm thinking about it as what I would pay, like the most I would pay for certain products. And this is all tailored to my palate, so there are going to be some things on this list that people aren't going to like. There are some of Buffalo Trace's products that I am not in on, but I will be transparent about that, and I will be transparent as to why I will not pay. If you're interested in some of my reviews on things, they will be in the cards. So if you're interested in some of that, I will prioritize the reviews where they are put up against other products. We're just going to get into it. It's going to be a slog, but we're going to take this adventure together. So this is going to be ranked by lowest price I would pay for a product to highest price I would pay for a product. So it is in kind of no particular order other than how much I would pay and then alphabetically at each price point. Quick side note, all of this is based on 750 milliliter bottles or standard size bottles. You got a little bit of play with some of the handles or the smaller sizes. I don't want to get into all of that. I just want to get into what I would pay for a standard 750. So starting out with Ancient Age, it is, I believe, $10 MSRP. I would pay up to $15. I think it's a decent whiskey, but it's 80 proof, so I'm probably not using it as anything other than a mixer. And then the Mash Bill 1 equivalent of that, or Benchmark Old Number 8, 80 proof, I'm only paying 15 bucks for that too. So both of those should be under 10 bucks, 10-ish dollars most places, for a 750 milliliter, and I will pay up to $15 for that. Moving up kind of one tier is the Benchmark Small Batch. I've seen them as low as 7 some places. I've seen them as high as 30 bucks. I would pay 20 for a small batch specifically, and kind of tied into that, I would pay 20 for the top floor as well. All the Benchmark lineup past that is generally roughly in the same area. I don't like the top floor and the small batch as much as the other products, so I would only pay a max of 20 for them. Moving up kind of one tier, we've got Ancient Age, which is the 10-star. There's also a preferred. I would pay up to 20 bucks for a 750 of them. I have a handle and I think I paid 30 for that. Then kind of the next tier of Benchmark is the Benchmark Bonded. Also, that includes the single barrel and the full proof. I would pay 25 for all of those. I think they're great for budget whiskeys, but I think they are just that. Don't be bamboozled into paying 50 bucks for those. They should be between 20 and 30, and I think they're appropriately priced at 25. Then one kind of tier up, I think, to the beginning of their standard offerings. Buffalo Trace, just standard Buffalo Trace, I would pay $30 for. I would go up as high as 35 for a store pick if this store is something that I enjoy and it's a reputable store, or if I get the chance to try it ahead of time. In addition, I would pay 30 for the Bourbon Cream. That is really good. Put it with Freddy's root beer or any kind of root beer and you have an instant root beer float. In addition, Old Charter and Old Taylor, I believe, are both just 1.75s, the 80 proof of both of those, and I would pay up to 30 for those as well. And then Sazerac Rye, I would also pay 30 bucks for. I think that's around MSRP. It's a great entry-level rye. It's just nothing surprising. In addition, Weller Special Reserve, I would not pay anything over 30 bucks for. I don't think it competes with even standard Maker's Mark, but in that sub $30 category, I think it's amazing. I would pay 30 for it, but not a penny more. Moving on to Eagle Rare, I would pay $40 for Eagle Rare. I would pay up to, I think, probably 60 for a reputable store pick. I think the biggest point of contention is the finish, but I think it generally has enough of a finish to warrant a price increase over the Buffalo Trace, at least for me. Next up, Elmer T. Lee, and this is probably the one that I'm going to get hate for, but I wouldn't pay any more than 50 bucks for it. I find it to be incredibly smooth, and if you love smooth whiskey, lots of vanilla notes, Elmer T. Lee is going to be your thing. It's just not mine. Also, kind of in the same vein, Weller 12, I would pay a max of $50. I think Weller 12 is an age-stated 90 proof product, but it's lacking in flavor to me. I recently just bought one for 40 bucks, and at that price, absolutely fantastic. When you get above that $50 price point, you are getting diminishing returns, and it's straight up, to me, not worth that. Moving up one price tier, I'm kind of bundling all of the kosher products together. So they got the straight rye, the rye recipe, which is just a rye bourbon, and then the wheat recipe, which is a wheated bourbon. So the three of those, they're all at 94 proof, and I would pay a max of 75 for those. I do think they're better than the standard counterparts in those mash bills. I think it's Buffalo Trace, Weller, and then Sazerac Rye, and I think I would buy them over those products, but I don't think I would pay more than 75. In addition, E.H. Taylor Small Batch, if I were out of them and I really wanted one, I like it enough to pay 75 bucks for it. A little bit underpriced for what it is. I think it's worth 75-ish, but definitely don't be dropping 150 on that. Also, Blanton's fits into this price point for me. The max I'll pay for Blanton's is 75. I would maybe pay 100 if I really needed a gift for somebody who I knew would be overjoyed to have it. In addition, Hancock's Reserve is there. I think Hancock's and Blanton's are really close to each other. Not necessarily in proof, but they are similar products. I like Hancock's maybe a little bit better. It's not worth the 100 that they're charging at Total Wines. At least not in my opinion. Then moving up, we've got the next E.H. Taylor. The single barrel, I think, is worth $100. If it is a store pick from a reputable store, I would maybe be willing to go up to $150. Next, we have a run of 3 different Wellers. One of them is my favorite. That is the Weller Antique. I would only pay $100 for that. In addition, the CYPB or Craft Your Perfect Bourbon, I would only pay $100 for that. I've had one. I've actually had pours, I think, of 3 different years batches, and it just doesn't wow me. In addition, the Weller Single Barrel, I've had pours of the single barrel before, and they're good. I think I would pay $100 to have one in my collection, but no more than that. Moving up a price tier, the next one would be E.H. Taylor Straight Rye, and I really enjoy that product, so I would be willing to pay up to $150 for that. The one that I have is an older one. I think it's a 2015. And it's getting pretty low. That's one that I would be interested in replacing. Then we've got Blanton's Gold. I just recently got my first Blanton's Gold, and I know $150 is close to MSRP for it. I think it's worth maybe a little bit over MSRP. Kind of in the same vein, same mash bill. Rock Hill Farms, I would pay $150 for. They have a, I think, much better blended finish, and the rye spice, the higher rye of mash bill 2 really pops out with that one, and I really enjoy it. And then finally, at the $150 price point, I would get a Weller Full Proof. That's a little bit under what secondary on Weller Full Proof is going for, at least currently. Maybe for a decent store pick or like a really, really well sought after store pick, I would go as high as maybe 175, 200, but I'd really have to think about it, and it would not be an instant buy for me. Moving up a price tier, Blanton Straight from the Barrel, I would pay as much as $200 to own one of them. I think I bought one for 175, maybe a higher proof one if I found one that was like 135, 138, something like that. I might pay closer to 225, 250. So it is the only Mash Bill 2 product at barrel proof, but I think 200 is my max still. And then the Mash Bill 1 equivalent of that, not single barrel obviously, but Stag, heavily batch dependent, but for a new batch or one that I know that I like, I will pay up to 200. Stag is one of my favorite, if not my favorite, decently available bourbons. Now the caveat is store picks, and there are some crazy store picks floating around, including some hazmat ones. If I found the right hazmat one, I would pay up to $500. I really want to see what it's like at hazmat, gotta be honest. So the final bottle for the $200 price tier is Van Winkle Lot B. That is a 90.4 proof bourbon. I just don't like it that much. I actually get a huge amount of the grape note from every single one that I've had, to the point where I called it E&J's Grape Brandy in a blind one time as a joke, but still, I mean, it was very grape forward and not a whole lot else. Max of 200, and that's pretty much just because it is a Van Winkle product. However, for the Old Rip Van Winkle 10 year, I would pay up to 250 bucks. On the flip side of the flavors that I get out of Lot B, I get a ton of oak, cake icing, leather, cherry, everything that I want out of a bourbon. It lacks a little bit of what I generally like in proof, but it has flavor to match, I think, what a $250 bottle should be. In addition, the Van Winkle family Estate Rye, I have not tried it, so this is somewhat hypothetical. If at some point in the future I do get to try the rye, and I really enjoy it. I might up this number, but $250 is my max for it right now. Moving up a price tier, I would go up to $300 for E.H. Taylor Barrel Proof. So I've been hunting one for a while. Ended up being one of my 5 whiskeys I'm hunting this fall. Hopefully would be able to find one for less than secondary. I just can't pull the trigger at $400. It's really good. Don't get me wrong. I like it better than I like Stag, which is saying a lot for me, but I still wouldn't pay full on secondary of $400 plus for it. Just not happening. Also, first of our BTAC offerings, Sazerac 18. I would not pay more than $300 for that. I've had it. It's just not enough proof for me. I would honestly pass on it except to get all 5 of my BTAC Infinity Stones. Now for the E.H. Taylor Barrel Proof Rye, I will pay up to $400. Secondary on it is bonkers. It is 1,000 plus. I'm interested to see what it tastes like at some point, hopefully. For the moment, $400 is the max I'll go. Also at the $400 price point is Pappy Van Winkle 15. I really do like it. I've had some, and I think it's appropriately a step up from the old Rip Van Winkle 10-year. However, I'm just not going to pay anywhere close to secondary. I think $400 is it. It is the best Pappy named product by far. I just won't pay up for it. Thomas H. Handy is in that $400 price point also, and that is a product that I really do enjoy. I've had couple of different years worth of them, and they have surprised me every time. Eagle Rare 17, I would pay up to $500. It's not necessarily because I like it better. It is because I think it's a more sought after product. The Eagle Rare 17 is like 1,000 on secondary. Just straight up not interested in that. Got just 4 products left, and we've got Pappy Van Winkle 20-year. I would pay up to $500 for that. I think the 90 proof is a little disappointing for me. Just to have one in my collection, that's not that much over MSRP. In addition, the 23-year, I would go $700. That's not even double MSRP. George T. Stagg secondary is roughly between $700 and $800 right now. I would go $750 for it. I would pay full secondary. It is definitely the best whiskey I've tasted so far, and I would go $750 for it. In addition, its Weller counterpart, I would pay $750 for a William LaRue Weller, provided I'd actually tasted it first. Some years I think aren't as good as others. Now, there are products tiered above this. I would not buy a bottle of them. Just being honest here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you what I would pay for it in a bar. And I'll give you the MSRP suggested price. This is all based on one pour. Now, it is based on 15% of the drink being the cost of the liquor. That is how I ended up at the pour price. Starting off with Double Eagle Very Rare, a pour of that based on MSRP would cost $533. I would go as high as $200. It's interesting enough to me that I would be willing to try it, but $200 is pretty much my max, especially for a single ounce of it. In addition, the Old Fashioned Copper, or Old Fire Copper, as they refer to it as at Buffalo Trace. Suggested pour price would be around $666, and that is a devil of a hard to swallow price, so I would pay $250 just to try it. Depends on years, obviously. They have different years of it, and they are different prices, but at the $2,500 MSRP, I'm not going even full what a bar should charge. Weller Millennium. I know this is a fun one, because pour price should be $2,000 based on its MSRP. I think $400 is the max I would pay for a single ounce of it. I also kind of want to taste what it's like not being a wheated bourbon, but that's just me. So that's the end of my list. That is all I'm going to do. I may have missed a product here. If I did, or if you want to argue about prices with me, do so in the comments. I'm always up for talking whiskey or correcting my mistakes. Both of those things happen all the time. If you want to support the channel, you can check out these awesome shirts. We got whiskey season shirts for Halloween. They are limited edition. Once Halloween is over, these shirts are going away. So definitely grab one while you still can. We've got Glens. We've got hats. Link to the merch store is in the description. We also have memberships here on YouTube if you're interested in. There's a bunch of different perks, including access to our Discord. We are launching a Patreon at some point in the near future, so stay tuned for that. We'll do a sticker club and a sample club. Info on that to come. If you like this content, check out our other videos. Please like and comment on this video and subscribe if you haven't already. And we hope you'll join us in drinking like a gentleman. Cheers. I call it my stag test. If I'll buy stag for 200, what else can I measure up to that? So far, the only thing that's really gotten there is 13th Colony Double Oaked.